Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Charles, and I'm your host today. My guest is David Gutman, who is a developer and a consultant obsessed with building repeatable systems for recruiting, onboarding, and managing remote software engineers. Now, over the course of his 20 plus years in software development, David has led engineering teams to ship massive and innovative projects, including the content platform that powers Disney.com and StarWars.com, along with over 170 other sites across dozens of languages and regions, video ad servers that handle over 10 billion requests per day, and an LMS that Time Magazine listed as one of the best inventions of the year in 2020. David, I am so glad that you were able to join us today. Welcome to the show.
Nice. Happy to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about interrupt-driven chaos and how AI and deep work are sort of reshaping developer productivity.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I'll go ahead and jump right in with the first question that we had, which is your book. So we'll go ahead. You know what? Before we even dive into there, I want you to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your books.
Okay. So my book, Superstruct Manifesto, is what I consider to be a survival guide for founders who depend on devs to get things done. Many times you have a founder who is either non-technical or technical enough to be dangerous, and they're not the ones that are doing a lot of the building to the extent that it is a software or technology enabled product or focused product. One of those things where software is eating the world. So pretty much most companies now have to have some software component, and you either have engineers in-house or a dev shop agency doing that for you. The problem that can often happen are any number of things. One of the biggest issues that I see is that once you have a founder in charge of, responsible for software engineers, they're going to look to some of the shiniest other companies that do this. And what you often see is cargo culting. So the idea that if I do what those companies do, I'm going to get the same results that those companies get. And so you have a lot of what people refer to as best practices that are not actually the best for everyone. They can be quite good for certain companies, but quite bad for other companies. And so the book goes through a lot of things that tend to be either best practices or conventional wisdom that can be quite harmful for founders of certain types of companies.
Which makes perfect sense. I mean, when you're talking about companies, even ones that offer very, very similar products, and because we've had people who have come from other companies that were competitors of ours, and then they come over here, and we do everything different. So there's always this learning curve to get back into, well, how do you do things? Because that's very different from how we did things over at X company and Y company. So yeah, I can see where if you're trying to follow, well, this is this other company's best practices, this is how they've always done things, it might not actually work when you bring with you to a new company.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that you are a race car driver used to, driving a very expensive vehicle on roads, and then now you're in a big truck, also very expensive vehicle, also on roads, but a lot of the surrounding situation is quite different.
Now, your book argues that daily stand-ups, these are a net negative. And I'm really curious about that because daily stand-ups, that's like every business has to do these, right? Especially in software, but you're thinking that's probably not a great idea.
Sure. So can't really speak to teams other than software engineers, but this really does seem to be something that was popularized with Agile and software. And we can just start from the very beginning, which is that any meeting has a cost. Presumably you are not paying people just to be in meetings. There is some kind of output. There is some reason why you're hiring someone, job description, and it's not just to talk. Now, what that means is that when you're in a meeting, they're not doing those things, and therefore the ROI that you need from that meeting has to overcome whatever, basically what everyone else would be doing with that time, or at least you can compare it to their hourly rate. So if you have 5 people in a meeting, multiply the hour, let's say it's an hour meeting, multiply by 5, that's the cost of the meeting. You better be getting at least that much value out of it. So just in general, any kind of meeting, I think you have to think in terms of that calculus of whether or not you're getting your money's worth. Recurring meetings are even worse, because now you have that. Stand-ups are supposed to be about 15 minutes, so let's just start there. So you've got 5 of those during a work week, 15 minutes. Just for simple math, let's just call it an hour. It tends to be a lot more than that. But anyway, so now you got an hour a week every week for the entire year. So for a year, you got, just again, round to 50 hours that you're committing to. What are you getting in exchange for that? Now, a bigger problem is that is not the whole cost. So developers, when they're working, they have a lot of things that they got to hold in their head. So when you're getting into a project, you have a lot of files that you're working on. They all have effects on each other, so you have to know how everything is linked to everything else. You make one change, it can affect other parts of the system. And so getting into where you are being productive, I often, for a developer, I often liken this to working on the bottom of the ocean. So if you were to work on the bottom of the seafloor or the ocean, you got to check your scuba tanks, you got to put on your mask, you got to check all the nozzles, you got to put on your wetsuit, all of these things. And then you get out of the boat and then you dive, and you got to dive slowly, not too fast. And then you get down to the bottom, and then finally you can do your work. Now, if someone pulls or pings you or something like that to come back to the boat, and then you ascend slowly, you get back onto the boat, take off all your gear, and you're like, hey, what's up? And they say, oh, did you get the email I sent you? You probably want to kill them. Now, this is kind of the same thing for an engineer, and how this works for meetings is that an engineer is not going to want to go down to the bottom of the ocean right before they have a meeting where they know they have to come back up. And so what's like kind of amazing and terrible about this is daily stand-ups are often the first thing in the morning, but because you can't really guarantee what first thing in the morning is for your whole team, and the more people you have, the more buffer you have to put in there. So if you don't put it actually first thing in the morning for every single person, all of the time that you have before you have that meeting is dead time. Nobody really wants to get into it before that meeting. But even if that wasn't the case, and you had it just, I don't know, at the end of the day, or somehow you solved that problem, you now just, even still, you just have this hole in the calendar for everyone on the team where they're not being productive. Okay, so now that's the cost side. The benefit side, this is the whole reason why people do these stand-ups, is the idea that without them, you wouldn't be able to okay. First, let me just say, in Agile, it's sort of like a no-no. You're not doing this for status updates. So if anybody listening is really on board with that, knows Agile, then fine. You're not doing this for status updates. No one would ever do that, except a lot of companies do that. But no one would ever do that. So the real benefit, according to the proponents, is that this uncovers blockers and it promotes communication. So if someone would say, hey, I'm working on this thing, I'm having issues with it. Well, this, people would argue, is the real benefit. Someone else on the team hears that and be like, oh, no, don't do it that way. I've done that before. You go down all this thing, so much wasted time. Here, let me save you all this time and tell you the right way to do it. And then boom, you've saved, let's just say, 20 hours of that developer's time. Well, that's really expensive. So you just, made a lot of, benefit from this meeting. If that's really happening with the frequency to which it would need to cover the cost of these meetings and the other productivity loss, I think you have bigger problems. And that is not the only or best way for your team to communicate and share those things. That's why I don't like stand-ups.
But there is a better way, right? I mean, we've got all these ways. I mean, it makes perfect sense, even from a creative standpoint, because I work with creative teams, and you're right. Once you get into the groove, being yanked out of it for a meeting where you're just asked, hey, how are things? Like, they're fine. Okay, thank you. Well, now I have to sit down and try to remember where I was again, get back into that groove, which could take 15 minutes, maybe. let's say so suddenly now my 15-minute meeting is now a 30-minute meeting. Plus, before it, I knew I had a new project that I wanted to get started, but I'm not even going to bother because in 30 minutes I'm going to have to go to this meeting anyway. So I'll just put it aside and I'll get to it after the meeting. And now,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yep,
So
yep,
you were saying, what are the other ways, right? So
yeah.
really a popular voice in this space or related space, Cal Newport, his book Deep Work, very I guess amazing synthesis and concise way to show the value of a lot of what creative software engineers do and how to get the most out of it, right? So large uninterrupted blocks of time, that's what you want. Now, how does that work with communication and things that we largely think of as interruptions? Well, maybe just don't anchor it to a specific spot on the calendar if you don't have to. So asynchronous written communication means that if even if you do want that cross communication, so here's what everybody's working on, people can chime in, say, oh, don't do it that way, let me save you a bunch of times. That is still possible if you do this asynchronous and written. And so to a developer, what that would look like is, hey, before the end of your workday, send this out, much the way that you would say to the rest of the team, and also read what the rest of the team wrote and respond to that, and you get a lot of the same benefit. I can speak to what I do with my engineers, which I find to be pretty cool. The I guess a point that I want to reiterate is that just because I have issues with the standard best practices and I have my own way to do it, it's still the same problem if you listen to what I do and you think like, oh, this is the answer. Like, I don't want cargo culting of any stripe. And so the real answer is to think about what it is that you actually want, the benefit that you want. Is it cross communication? Do you want to prevent your engineers from going down, blind alleys because you think other engineers on the team would be able to prevent it? Like, is that actually what you're thinking? Or is it that you want a status update? Or is it that you want the peer pressure of engineers having to say what they're doing so that they are moving the ball forward in a way that is helpful to the business? Whatever it is, identify that first. Okay, so with that out of the way that I do it is I have an AI engineering manager of sorts that will message each engineer individually and tell them, hey, this is what you said you would get done by today. Did you do it? Did that happen? And then the engineer can either say yes or no. And if the answer is no, then the AI will be like, hey, well, why not? So this is where a lot of blockers get uncovered, right? Because this is where you would see, well, I would have, but then product said that this was way more important and I should drop the other thing. And so I moved over to that. And so, no, I didn't finish the first thing. Well, this is great for uncovering the patterns of like, wait, this has happened 5 times, over the past 2 weeks. Maybe we need to talk to product. Maybe we need to reevaluate what's going on. If we can't, focus on something long enough to get anything over the finish line, there is a bigger problem, right? So that's a really good way to uncover something like that. Then the second part is the like, okay, what do you plan on doing today? And then the AI can look at that plan and make sure that it actually is something that is achievable, that is concrete, achievable, not just I'm going to work on issue 1, 2, 3, because nobody knows what that means. And of course, that will break the first part, which is, did you complete it? Because if it's work on X, it's really hard to agree on what yes or no means. And the dev is always going to say yes. And then we don't uncover any kind of issues. So that's one way to do it. That's all written. That's all async, and works really well.
Interesting. So the written communication, you think, is just far less invasive. It doesn't pull you out of the moment as harshly as having to drop everything and come to an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting. I mean, obviously, an in-person meeting, that's a lot of work. I'm going to have to drop everything and I'm going to have to walk over to the conference room and sit down in front of everybody. Zoom meetings, I imagine much the same way. I mean, certainly for me, when I'm doing those, it's just as much work as if I were to just get up and walk to a conference room. So this written communication, you think that's just far more efficient?
Yeah, it has a lot of advantages. I guess I do want to start by saying it is not that meetings don't have advantages, voice, video, or in person. It is not that they don't have advantages. In fact, they can have really large advantages. I'll start by actually saying that one of the most common complaints or counterpoints that I get from founders when I talk about removing, let's say, daily stand-ups, is they think of that as like, well, if we remove that, that's the best time for the team to see each other, hear each other, have that human connection, realize that they're part of a team, and that's really valuable. I think especially in in-person meetings, all the informal before and after, while people are waiting for things to get started, they're doing a little chit chat, they're small talk. A lot of this, sort of collective group bonding happens. I think that is incredibly valuable. I think, in fact, Zoom can often be the worst of both worlds because you tend not to get that part. You can't really have lots of people having side conversations at the same time. But at the very least, you can hear people's voice. You can see facial expressions. It can be a lot richer than text. So, do want to get it out of the way that I don't think that written communication is superior on all fronts. Usually what I tell founders is if that is something that they feel that they lose by moving to written communication, by losing stand-ups, it was like, okay, but if that is your goal, is having people take turns reciting their to-do list really the best way to get that bonding and friendship? And
Right. It
like,
becomes like, I get that you want everybody to get together and to talk and to be friends. How often do you want that to happen? Is that
yeah,
something that we're going to spend 2 hours every morning? Everybody just gets together and talks.
yeah, 100%. And also, just if you were to say like that is my one and only singular goal, and now you have complete freedom to design something to achieve that goal, like what would that look like? I don't think it would look like, a daily stand up or a regular team meeting. I think people just rely on that incidental effect. And I think that has been really damaging during COVID, where a lot of people went to remote, is they just assumed that they would get a lot of those ancillary effects from these meetings, and then they lost them, but then they are also still incurring all of the other costs, right? Okay, so do I think written communication is a lot better? Just in a lot of ways. One, when you write something, you have to see it before you send it, which means that you have to be very clear, where you can tell whether or not you are being clear before you send it. So, especially in like we're having a voice conversation right now, I'm sure the density and the clarity of what I'm saying is not nearly the same as it would be if I were writing it out. I think I would be cutting a lot of words. I think I would probably be phrasing things a lot better. And so that clarity, that information density tends to be a lot higher. This is also really important for the listener or the reader. Now, for the speaker, I can speak a lot faster than I can type. It's a lot more comfortable for me to speak than it is for me to type. And so this is actually why you have a lot of leaders or people with power in the company. Well, no, just listen to me. I don't want to type this out. That's not fun. Like, I prefer to be, this is easier, this is more fun for me. But for a listener, listening is much slower than reading, and especially when you take into account the fact that there's going to be less filler and more clarity and information density when reading, it's light years faster. So that's really important. Other than that, is a lot of voice and video. This might be changing with AI, with a lot of automatic transcripts and summarization and providing historical context. This might be changing a little bit, which is great. But in general, voice and video calls are not recorded. They are not searchable. They're not persisted. They leave kind of no record. Now, this might be desirable in some cases, but for a lot of business team operations, it's really helpful to get the context. Now, not just for everyone needs to, be aware of everything at all times. If that wasn't your department, I should be aware of what this department is doing just in real time as it happens. Like, oh, that meeting, I wasn't in it. It just ended. I should go see what happened. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. But
Right.
imagine onboarding for a second, right? So onboarding, a new person comes to the team, or a new person comes onto a project. Uh, there's a lot of history that they've missed, and so there's kind of a reason why somebody new to a project, there's a lot of this ramp up time to figure out where things are, what's going on, what happened, how we got to here. And if all of the communications were voice and video, there's no history. There's nothing to review. There's nothing to get caught up on. Imagine instead somebody comes onto a project, somebody comes onto a team, and imagine if literally all conversations and everything that was done on that project was recorded, and it could be played back in, super speed, like in the Matrix, Keanu Reeves, like, I know Kung Fu, but like, I know this project. That's really powerful, right? That, you have the ability for new people to join projects and teams and be productive much more quickly.
I was going to say, just on that particular topic, one of the technologies that I've seen recently, and maybe it's been around for a while, but I've just now realizing it, is we've seen it inside of Notebook LM, the ability to load in not just notes and text files, but to load in audio files and video files. So, your audio calls, if they're actually being recorded, can become a part of your historical notes. And then that one button that lets you take all of that and summarize it into a podcast. And I'm seeing that become technology in other places. Even Foxit, our own PDF editor, is
Yeah.
going to have that feature pretty soon, where you'll actually be able to take multiple documents, summarize them all together, and have it read back to you as a podcast.
It's so good. In fact, if you're listening to this, this is how we're doing this right now. This is an AI. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it is really powerful. And what I was going to say too is, it's just so good to, even if you're just not trying to just binge watch or binge listen or binge review all of that history when you come in, problems come up, things come up, you have some issue on a project, just being able to search and then find the original context, the original conversations, what people were thinking, why they did something in a particular way in the past, so valuable for so many things that come up. So big fan of traditionally written communication, because that was the best way to have it searchable and available and read quickly. With AI, like you're saying, there's so many other ways of getting that now, which is pretty exciting.
Definitely. All right, this may or may not be shifting gears. You recently ran an experiment with Devin AI to a freelance developer. So I want to hear about that.
Okay, so if people aren't familiar, Devin AI is, I think a lot of people see it as the first autonomous AI software engineer. So for a long time, you could go into ChatGPT or something like that. You could tell it to write code for you, and in the chat, it would spit out a JavaScript file or whatever it is, and then you would be able to copy paste that, that into your editor, and so it'd be really cool. So in that way, it's almost like you're chatting with a software engineer, asking them for something, and then they could write code and then give it to you in the chat. From there, there's also tools like Cursor. Cursor largely came from, well, that's really annoying to copy and paste it from this window over here to where I'm working over here. And so it's a editor that incorporates that AI component into the editor. So originally it was just the chat bar inside the editor with a little bit of magic to be able to ask it things pointing at what you had in your code. And eventually it became more and more fully fledged to the point where the AI has access to your code editor and can make changes to the files as you have them open on your computer. This is in contrast to something like Devin, which is in your company's Slack, and you can tell it, hey, on this repo or this project, I want a feature that does XYZ. And it has its own computer, and it will go pull that code down, run it locally on its machine, make some changes on the files on its machine, test it in its browser, make sure that it's working the way that it wants, and then it'll open a pull request on GitHub or wherever you keep your code that can be reviewed by your other engineers just the same way that it would work if a human engineer had added a feature. And then you would merge it in the same way on GitHub or wherever that you would a traditional pull request. So the big difference between the Devin and these other tools is it really, the interface is way more like you are talking to a dev. And so if, like me, you really work on text-based communication, offshore engineers, primarily through Slack, it's very familiar. In fact, it pretty much mirrors how you would work with any kind of human engineer. So very exciting. I have started working with it, and I really wanted to know, kind of apples to apples, how does this compare, right? So it's great that it can do this, but if it's going to just give you horrible sloppy code that you can't use, okay, let's just forget this for a while.
Right.
So so what I came up with is, I have a side project. So there's a Discord and a blog that's really cool, Latent Space. It's all based around AI. Within their Discord, they have a channel called AI in Action, which is really about, as opposed to discussing papers on the frontier, it's about, okay, how are you using this stuff today in your work? So it's a lot of software engineers talking about the differences between all the things that I just mentioned, Cursor, Devin, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
There is a weekly presentation. People sign up, they give talks, share their screen, tell people about what they're doing. And so the sign up form for that is a bot. You just talk to the bot and say, hey, I want to give a talk, ask you what the talk is about, so on. Okay, so I wanted to add search. Has anybody given a talk on A2A? Has anybody given a talk on Devin? Has anybody given a talk on Cursor? Things like that. And then having in Discord, the bot being able to just search the database and give you an answer. So, all right, Devin, let's see how you do with this. Devin did it in about half an hour, and it cost about $10. Now, some
Wow.
people might think that, well, I could have done it much faster and I'm free or whatever it is. Like what is this? Now, to get that, to turn this into science, to science, real science, I did an experiment, which is that I took Devin's output, completely hid it, made it look like that had never happened, and then I gave the same prompt, if you will, to a human engineer. And just to be clear, this is a very good human engineer, has worked on real production systems over the course of years. And these are probably their features have been incorporated into, like, we're talking millions of dollars of revenue. Like these are real systems, real serious engineer. And I had him do the same, gave him pretty much the same instructions, had him time how long it took him to do these different things, and he was able to just barely finish in 3 hours. So you got 30 minutes versus 3 hours, and it's like Devin is, if you take that $10.30, that's $20 an hour, and much faster. 6 times faster. And just so people understand too, is I took the output and then reviewed it. Even had AI review it, because let's just go turtles all the way down. The main difference was that the human engineer was much more succinct. So it had, if you want to put it in more human, like human wins terminology, the human had a much smaller blast radius, touched less of the code base, it did less, was much more concise, which are huge advantages, so I'm not going to deny that. But the AI, the documentation was way more thorough, much more complete. The code handles more edge cases, does more things. I think the testing was a little bit more complete on the AI side. So it wasn't just unilateral, the human one. I think a lot of people might even choose the AI's work, and it was much faster and much, much cheaper.
Wow. Is this going to be the fall of the software engineer?
Well, I think the dream is that I am not the one that's talking to Devin myself, right? Because it's not really, it's not a dichotomy that, oh, I talk to Devin or I talk to the engineer. No, I think that is what readily comes to mind, because in this case, I either talk to Devin on Slack or I talk to the engineer on Slack, and it was either Devin's pull request that showed up in GitHub or the engineer's pull request that showed up in GitHub. So it's easy to make that comparison. But I think what we really could be choosing between is I talk to the engineer and the engineer does it themselves, or I talk to the engineer and the engineer has 5 Devins running. Like
I
that
feel
seems
like
very powerful.
that's actually much closer to where we're headed, because let's face it, if you worked with Devin as a software engineer, or another engineer was working with Devin, they know what questions to ask. They know how to build these structures. If I were to open Devin, I have no idea what I'm looking at. And I wouldn't know I know kind of an idea of the output that I want, but I don't know how to get there. I don't know the steps.
Yeah, so I can
And
I can I can tell you some interesting things about from the non-technical angle. So I have so one of my clients uses Devin now. So the software engineers use it. So they're the ones that are asking Devin to open pull requests or things like that. But he uses it all the time now because Devin also, this podcast is brought to you by Devin.
I wish, hey, Devin, if you want to sponsor us, by all means, reach out.
Yeah. So Devin also has what it's called, like the Devin wiki. And so when Devin is added to a project, it wants to document it for itself, because it doesn't want to go for every little thing it does. It doesn't want to go look through all the coding files and things like that. So what it's doing is it's generating these high level summaries, table of contents, so it can quickly find the context of the information that it wants. You can also review that. So you can review that, but you can also ask it questions about projects and repositories. So the CEO, my client, he uses it all the time because clients are asking. It's a very technical product, so it's a SaaS ad server. So he has clients, media buyers, and other performance marketers that want to know, like, can it do X, or if I have this particular setup, like, can I use it? How would that work for me? And so this is a many years complicated tech product that has been built up over time. uh, I'm very familiar with it, and even I don't know how everything works. But this allows him to ask Devin, like, hey, I have a client who wants to do XYZ. Can this do it? And it will tell him, yeah, they can do it this way, or this way. Here's how, like, here's a diagram of how all this stuff works or whatever. And then now on sales calls or him talking to the product people, he knows exactly what to ask for. He knows the limitations, he knows the capabilities, and he is so much more educated about his own product and the things that he can ask for. So much better. And so to your case, yeah, you may not be in a situation to know what you're looking at, to use your words with Devin, or to be able to ask it a very fully thought out feature. But it does have the tools to let you understand so much faster and so much better, which is also really cool for non-technical folks.
Which is nice. I'm going to equate this to being able to take my car into a mechanic, right? It's one thing to go into a mechanic. I haven't the foggiest clue what I'm talking about. I just go in and say, it makes a clink noise. I don't know what that means. And so I'm completely 100% reliant on that technician to take it from there. So it would be very different if I knew it, if I understood the vehicle a lot better and I understood the noises it makes. I know what I want for an output when I take it to the technician. That still doesn't mean I want to be the one to actually get into the car and fix it myself. I still want the technician. And regardless of what tools that technician uses, if he's using AI to build my car, great. I don't care. I just want the output. And so with that in mind, I still don't think that any of this will ever take away the developer or the engineer completely. I definitely think you need that mindset in order to be able to do something truly efficiently. But at the same time, wow, the amount of output that a developer can now achieve, that definitely looks like it's going to be increasing exponentially over the next well, it's happening right now, and then over the course of the next year, who knows where that's going to go.
I know it's so bananas to me that this is where we are with Devin right now, but this is the beginning. Like we're basically at the first pitch of the first inning. Like this is where we are, just at the very beginning. Like Devin probably, you know, I haven't done the market research, but it doesn't really seem like Devin even has that many competitors yet. I mean, I think only recently Jules from Google came out. You've got Claude Code only recently being able to be used on GitHub Actions, so that it's kind of that same thing. I think you got Codex from OpenAI. Like all of these are super recent, right? So you're only just now having entrants and competitors for this, and they're not even really like one-to-one. Yeah, GitHub has another one, like there's a Copilot agent. These are all brand new. Like a lot of these just came out in the past couple of weeks. So it's just wild to think just where we are in this whole, you know, saga.
All right, David Gutman, developer and consultant. I've got all of your links down in the description below, along with your social media. So everybody who's watching and listening, please check him out, and be sure to leave a comment if you've got questions. David, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Loved it.